Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another special episode of Herschel Talkers. Georgia coming off a great win over Notre Dame 23-17. I was at the game. Sanford Stadium at Dooley Field was rocking, electric. LED light show was awesome. Great for recruiting overall. On the CBS broadcast, had some great ratings. We'll talk about that. Also, please follow us on YouTube. Herschel Talkers on our YouTube channel. We're also on Twitter at Herschel Talkers. We're on Facebook 247. And this week we have a special guest this week, David Wellons from Dawginsiders.com, as we get some of his expertise and analyst work on Georgia going forward, some of their schedules on recruiting. And it's a great episode, and enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Herschel Talkers. This week got a special guest, David Wellons from Dawginsiders.com. He's very knowledgeable about Georgia. Figured we'd bring him in this week as Georgia's on a bye week, so we can get some of his analyst and expertise. How are we doing today, David?
Doing great. I appreciate you having me on. It's certainly a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, appreciate it. Diving right in, Georgia had a big win this past weekend, 23-17 over Notre Dame. I was personally there. David, did you get to make it to the game? I wasn't sure if I didn't know if I asked that. I know we were texting a lot. Were you at the game?
I did not. I just recently moved up to Columbus, so I've been getting some things lined up here. So I was sitting around with some Alabama fans watching it, but it was a good close game. It's good to see us win a close game like that. That they probably should have lost in the past playing a game like that.
Yeah, I agree. I had some friends I spoke with that, under Mark Rick, he's a good coach, but I feel like that might have been a Rick game that they would have lost in the past, but they were able to kind of push through and get over the edge and win it. I was there, electric atmosphere, probably the loudest. I've been to several games, of course, in my past, always been a Georgia fan, but loudest I've ever heard it there, and the LED lights were awesome, and just I thought it was a great win for Dawg Nation and for recruiting. We can get into that. I'm sure it was a great look for them. I will say this, maybe Notre Dame was a little better than everybody thought. They made it a little nerve-wracking there at the end because pretty much came within a couple of plays of pulling off the upset. But I know special teams wasn't great. Jake Camarda, only having 20-yard and a 27-yard punt. And the Tyler Simmons fumble. So, just want to get your overall thoughts on the game from what you saw, David.
As far as stats, the first thing that surprised me is that Georgia actually led in time of possession. Watching that game on TV, it seemed like our defense was on the field a lot longer than it was, but Georgia actually led in time of possession 34 and a half minutes to 25 and a half. So that stood out. One thing that stood out watching the game was Notre Dame's defense. They looked good, which we had Kinley go down early on the line, and Isaiah Wilson came in the second half. You kind of tell that on defense, their defensive line looks out, the linebackers look good, and they shut down Pickens and our wideouts for the most part. Faram had a great completion percentage and completed what he needed to do, over 7 yards of pass. But they kept us down. Third down percentage was decent. I believe we were around 4 of 11, but they did certainly stop the momentum a couple of times. That was with some injuries, but I don't know. I have to give Notre Dame their due. Of course, now Georgia fans need to be rooting for Notre Dame to win out, which they don't have that tough of a schedule. They play Virginia, a ranked Virginia team this weekend. They still got USC and they play at Michigan. But they'll be wrapped up by Halloween with their tough games, unless they get upset. And then they've got a clear route to pop back in the top 5 because there's a bunch of SEC teams between them that play each other that will knock each other off. And they have a shot to ease back up and keep that strength of schedule pretty stout as far as Georgia's concerned.
Yeah, I agree with that, and especially how close it was. I feel like if we would have blown them out, that would have killed their playoff chances. But I feel like they'll need a little help. But they got a shot. I I'll definitely be watching each game closely, just how close we played them.
Well, as we kind of discussed, earlier in the week, that Georgia needed a game like this, and a couple years ago when we went to Auburn and got blown out there, that was a wake up call. It was a totally different team that came back, and they've got a wake up call with this, but they got a W in the column, so that's nice to see. It wouldn't have really affected our playoffs chances going forward with a loss, but it surely felt good to get a win there and have that wake up call and be humbled by that. The team's going to rebound off this. Kirby's going to use it as a stepping stone, as a learning part. I'm sure they're back at it today, and I'm sure they're at it right now going forward.
Yeah, speaking of some of those injuries, we talked about Tyson Campbell. It was Solomon Kinley. Who was the other? Eric Stokes. Anything heard anything that how everybody's looking on the injury front? I know we got a bye week, which is much needed. But have you heard anything on that?
Stokes came back in later on in the game, at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I think Stokes is going to be fine. It was nice seeing everybody step up. DJ Daniel had a good game. McGee had a good game, and the depth, shown there. You could probably take the first stringers out for Georgia, and you would still have a top 20 team. They're so deep and talented, and that's just going to continue. And that's a testament to the recruiting ability of Smart and his staff there now, and the things that they do. And like we were speaking earlier, the brand of Georgia is on par there with anybody else. We're pulling kids from California, Texas, South Florida, all those major places, as well as holding up the state. And they're landing kids at a pretty incredible rate. But the depth is showing through there. As far as Kinley, I don't know if he'll be back anytime soon. They keep injuries pretty locked tight. They don't have to release injury information in college football as they do with the pros, with the gambling and all that. So, last year Marshall was week to week. Marshall wasn't going to play. Marshall got dinged up as well this past week. But you had kids that on the team that hurt all last year, and you never heard anything of it because they don't have to disclose that information. Of course, the scouts will know that because they'll make them aware of that. But Campbell, not really sure on that. I know Demetrius Robinson's got a hamstring issue, and that's going to be nagging for a while.
Right.
But the bye week came at a good time. We're used to seeing it, right before Florida. So I think a few kids will be ready for Tennessee. But like I said, you don't really know on those things.
Yeah, it's good to know. How about what do you think so far? I know we got an early dose of it 4 games in. What do you think Chaney compared to Coley? I know there's some criticism in a lot of the forums and everybody talking about maybe Georgia was a little too conservative on offense. What's your thoughts on that so far? I felt like that 4th and 1 they should have went for, but
I do too, but there at the end of the game they kicked a field goal to tie it up after they drove down and scored a touchdown. So there's always going to be those backseat quarterback coaches / those observations, but you can't argue with the depth, the talent, the execution or lack thereof. And then when you have those play calls, it's all up to the kids to go over there and execute, no matter what you call. I can't really be too critical on anything like that when you're playing a top 10 team, definitely a top 5 defense. But it feels conservative because we're not moving the ball and we're not playing Murray State or Arkansas State.
Oh yeah.
In my opinion. I agree. We won't play another defense like that till Florida and then Auburn, as far as top 10 defense with those kind of athletes. And they were getting pressure on the ball and they were doing well. But then again, besides a muff punt, all they had was one good drive there at the end against our defense with our second, third string corners out there. So I can't really fault the coaching, and I don't think they were conservative at the ball. I think it was just a good football game.
Yeah, and then I watched the replay actually Sunday because, of course, being at the game, can't see everything. But I felt like Notre Dame was fundamentally great at tackling. Like it just seems like Georgia couldn't get in any space. You know, when DeAndre Swift would get hemmed up and they tackling fall down right there. So that could have been a good, just good fundamentally tackling defense, like you said. And I think Notre Dame had a chip on their shoulder coming in the game. They heard all week, you know, you're giving up over 200 yards. Georgia's going to run it down your throat. They got the biggest offensive line, so I felt like they got a chip on their shoulder and they were motivated.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's a great observation. Swift had a quiet 98 yards.
He did.
And then Zeus didn't get a touch. With the week before we had all 5 scholarship run back to score a touchdown. So I think you go from seeing the team throw at 50 a game to seeing that, then you're going to be Georgia fans are going to be critical, and deservedly so with the past that they've been through. But like I said, the big difference in this is come out with a W. It's a big W. One at home.
It was.
Had a lot of recruits. A lot of the biggest attendance in school history with the seats being brought in, and on the main stage, 9 million people watched that game.
Exactly.
9 million people thought Georgia win an ugly game, in our opinion, but we won.
Exactly. Oh yeah, it's a W at the end of the day. 4-0, top 3 for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Speaking of Zeus White, I know a lot of people are asking, do you think maybe Kirby didn't think he was ready for the big stage quite yet, or he kind of just wanted to roll with DeAndre Swift and Brian Harry was too experienced back? What's your thoughts on that? Just why he wasn't in the game or didn't get any carries?
I think pass protecting. Any young running back's got to have that pass protection, and probably just try and get those guys you mentioned, Swift and Harry, just in a groove. We've been able to put backups in the second quarter every game they've played, so it's totally different as opposed to the first 3 games of the year. And then we'll see more when we play Tennessee in week 6, but which they've got stout defense as well, but I don't think it'll be nearly the game. I don't think we'll be challenged again until I don't see anybody challenge them besides Auburn the rest of the year, and mainly because that's on the road and the talent they have up front on defense.
Yeah, I agree, and I was impressed finally that Lawrence Cager, I think he had his coming out party. He pretty much, I think it was 5 receptions, 82 yards and a touchdown. So I think he might be maybe your Javon Wims-esque type guy going forward. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
And if you had to pick your top 3 receivers right now, or your go-to receivers, who would that be?
Well, I'm probably along the same lines as the staff. Whoever's out there blocking the best, they're only going to be the guys out there that are doing the best in blocking on the run game. Pickens stayed in the game, only got targeted twice, but if you go back and watch the film, he did a good job, solid job blocking. Simmons, who's kind of plagued by penalties and of course the fumble, which you kind of looked on both early punts that he was kind of iffy on, that we had a receiver out there covering the gunner a little too hard there at the end. After 40 yards, you kind of 30, 40 yards, if that gunner's got you beat, kind of got to let him go instead of trailing them back there into your returner, which kind of seemingly happened. That's something that can be cleaned up. But they're in a big game, one play like that could, it turns your season. But back to your question, I like all the receivers. I mean, the depth there, the size, the speed with D-Rob. You're not seeing many drops this year as opposed to past. I mean, seemingly, I can't recall many drops. Seeing from he's going through his reads. He's hitting his second, third reads. He's putting the ball right on the spot. I mean, the guys basically just got to put their hands up there and the ball's there. I mean, if you're 6'2", 6'4", 6'5", you got a pretty good radius there. You got a pretty big target there as far as, getting the ball in there. Those back shoulder fades were right there. And he really didn't have a bad ball all night. This his completion percentage was pretty high. The yards wasn't really there, but I don't see him as a game manager at all. He looked the part. He's not getting the recognition that two guys that he's beat out that have went elsewhere are getting. Both those guys are in Heisman contention. But Fromm has been the guy since he took the field. He hadn't let up or disappointed. And on third down, really can't get too nervous with that guy because he can make a play. And now mature enough to chit down, audible at the line. He knows the offense. Not many things have changed. I like what Coley's doing, and I love what Fromm's doing. And I like the whole receiving unit as a whole, even with the guys leaving, dropping off. They're just reloading, and seemingly will next year as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'd probably say I really like Blaylock. I hope they get him a lot more. And I know he's a true freshman, but it seems like he does okay fielding the punt return.
He's a great kid, well spoken.
Heard he's good.
It's always nice to see a kid commit, drop out, and just buy in like he did. It's very rare these days. Kids want the attention, especially seemingly watching football, NFL at the receiver position. This seems that that's hey me type of position, but he's really stepped up, bought into blocking, doing those little things, special teams. And you look at the special teams unit that we roll out of there, say kickoff covers, things like that. You've got 5 stars everywhere out there.
Oh yeah. I guess to be nitpicky, one that I think I read on some of the forums, I don't want to call the guy out, but it looks like Matt Landers might be struggling a little bit. I know he had a couple of reverses. He had one catch for negative yards. What do you think about him so far? I know he's long and he's big. I know they're trying to focus on him a lot in the spring game, but what's your thoughts on Matt Landers?
I think the hype that he's built up in practice hadn't carried over to the field apparently, and the coaching staff has taken responsibility for that. They're the ones that anything that's released as far as Georgia's concerned, the coaches allowed it to be, because the media didn't see much at practices. So if there's things that come out as far as the program, the coaches allowed it to be. And he's got the size. He's definitely got the skill set. He's just got to get in there and do it, and have the opportunity to shine at that stage. And it's hard to be critical of any of these young men because it's such a hard game, such tough sport, and such a high level that they play at that I'm kind of guarded on saying anything negative about any of them because they definitely had more talent than I had at that age, and or be critical of their mistakes because I made plenty of them, continue to make them, and it's just for me it's tough to be critical of any of them, the staff, any of them, because I'm very proud to be a Georgia fan. I try to distance myself and not say we, us, stuff like that as far as, analyzing game film, this and that, and be nonpartisan about it. But it's tough. I'm proud of these guys, and it's a good time to be a Dawg fan. It has been. It's a very, very bright future that I think we're all excited about.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely a great time, and each win we need to enjoy. But I think we get caught looking down the road, and after being the last 2 years being so close. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that.
Exactly. Being so close, I think the past 3 losses to Alabama, we were glad to be there and compete, and now we want to win. And the kids do too more than anybody else. They're the ones out there playing. And I've walked out of all 3 of those games, shaking hands. Good game, great game. Was proud to be there. Didn't mind losing like that. Now it's time to pull out the W, and I'm sure without a shadow of a doubt that Kirby wants to win it, and they will win it. It's just you got to take these bumps and bruises, and only through your weakness can you gain strength.
Exactly. Yeah, I know you mentioned earlier about the schedule a little bit. Looking at the rest of the schedule, 4-0. Who would you maybe see as the toughest challenge going down the road?
For Georgia, I would definitely say, you could slip up against Florida because that game right there down in Jacksonville, they got a good defense. I'm unsure about their offense, and their running game at this point. But we saw a Notre Dame team that ran for, 40, 46 yards or something like that. Georgia almost got beat giving up only 46 yards on the ground. So that's a testament to Notre Dame's skill and coming on the road. Like you said, they've been talked about this and that. Georgia's going to get everybody's best blow, best punch. Everybody's going to step up and want a piece of Georgia, just like everybody brings their best when they play Alabama. So I would definitely say Florida and Auburn stick out. That's the respectively 9th and 7th ranked team in the country currently. Both those games are going to be close. They're close every year. I don't see Georgia having the hiccup in the road to a team less superior in talent that they might have in the past. That little curse that everybody's kind of hesitant, just like probably Saturday night. Everybody's like, "Oh well, here they go again."
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. I just don't. Maybe I'm just a little overly optimistic about it, but I don't see that happening. Which I thought Georgia would win by 17. That's what I told you. I think our spread was about the same, 16, 17 points. Of course, covering the two touchdowns, which they should have, but they didn't. That's why I don't bet on games.
Exactly. I learned that a long time ago. Got burned on the whole betting thing. So I'll give out picks, but I won't put my money where my mouth is. I'm one of those guys.
Yeah, I definitely won't. When I was younger, I bet on Florida every year. That way, if we did lose, I'd have a little cash. But definitely don't do that anymore. I think I'll go to the dog track. That's as far as gambling as I'll see fit.
And speaking of Florida, I think they got Auburn coming to town, and they got to go to Baton Rouge. I think they might have a couple of losses rolling in our game, and I think they're a fraud at number 9. I don't think they're a top 10 team. That's my opinion. Defense is good, like you said, but that offense is a little shaky.
I totally agree. But then you got to look at the other teams from the other conferences and try to find somebody better. And at the same time, you got to think if they've got a loss, 2 losses going into the game against Georgia, and let's say Auburn's got a loss or 2 losses, they got their backs up against the wall. That's truly going to give you their best shot. Sometimes that's scary. Either way, you got kids at all these schools, and I'm not just saying this as a Georgia fan. I'm saying it because I know it. You look at the rosters, there's a lot of Georgia kids on these other teams that Georgia didn't have room for that are going to give you their best shot. I've talked to many kids that grew up being Georgia fans that couldn't get to Georgia for one reason or another. Of course, we would have took them in the past, but the level of recruiting now is so high that we turn down kids every year at every position, and they're still going to SEC schools, and they're still playing Georgia every year. They're going to, you look at Clemson's class for 2020, and there's one kid from South Carolina as of now. The rest of them are from Georgia and surrounding states, and of course they're getting a little national recognition. Of course, past several years, Dabo's done a great job there. But my point is, Georgia's going to get everybody's best shot, no matter who they are, no matter what.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. If I had to pick the one going down there, going down the stretch, I'm gonna go with Auburn. Auburn with that great defensive line. I think you mentioned that earlier. I know Bo Nix been a little rough around the edges, but he can get together. And it seems like always Auburn rises up on the year. They're not supposed to, and they'll get kind of. I know they got a brutal schedule too.
They seemingly get better throughout the year.
They do. And then that whole thing with Kirby is 0-3 against West teams and have been blasted 3 straight years. Got LSU last year, Auburn the year before, and Ole Miss. That's a little bit of a curse so far. So he needs to get over that. Can he win a West game on the road? So I would start with that one.
We've got A&M. We had mentioned A&M at home. Got Missouri, who's got a great strength of schedule and has looked up to par to the Missouri standards past couple of years. That's been a tough game.
We got them at home, which I like.
Right, exactly. But they've got to show up every week, and this team doesn't seem like they're going to be overlooking those guys. So, like I said, maybe I'm a little too overly optimistic, but I kind of look at it as a fresh start, a smart start, so to say, the past few years. And, the old days and what used to happen, or exactly that, the old days and what used to happen. So I've seen so much happen on the recruiting side that's fresh, new, energetic, brought new things brought to the table. The way things are done in Athens now are totally different than what they were. I'm very grateful for the previous staff and the contributions and the level they got the program to. I'm very excited and enthusiastic about where they're going and what things look like, and I'm totally wowed by the things I've seen the past couple of years. So, yeah, I'm very optimistic about the future and these kids we've got coming in and the kids we've got there.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I do agree that Kirby's taking it to another level on the recruiting side, and you can definitely see that on the field. So I'm very, very excited about what's coming up. And speaking of that, we'll transition and talk a little bit about I had a huge weekend with a bunch of recruits in town. You probably know it better than I do. You know, Darnell Washington, Theo Johnson, Tanks Bigsby, surprised. But you told me about his injury. We can talk about that. But yeah, what was your thoughts on from what you heard on the big recruiting weekend this past weekend with Notre Dame?
I think like anybody else that was in attendance, like yourself, they were pretty wowed by, if that doesn't get you ready to go play some football, and those kids as football fans had to really enjoy that environment. Watching it on TV was nice. Watching the replays, of course, what we didn't see during the commercials, going back online and watching some of the films on YouTube of the lights and the environment. It is what it is. We knew it would be a big weekend recruiting wise. They had kids from the next three classes there, huge recruits from all across the nation that were there. Some on officials, a handful that had, seemingly had a great time. You can go on their Twitter, Instagram, follow them anywhere. Look at other, websites, online recruiting websites that have interviewed these kids, and they seem pretty pumped up about what they saw. I think Georgia's going to have, a good week this week. They kind of determine the momentum and the release of commitments. I'm sure some kids are getting with their families and with the staff to see when and if they can go public with some things. It's been a bye week. It's going to be one of those times that they're probably going to drop a name or two, and we look forward to those names coming out. Not really going to speculate on the names or anything like that, but I don't think any of them is going to be a surprise. Everybody kind of, where there's smoke, there's fire, and those guys that are going to come forward, are pretty highly ranked. And when they come out and have their moment, it's going to be fun to discuss those guys because we've been watching film on a couple of them for a couple of years, and that's one thing that's, to me, it's the most joy I watch in recruiting is I can remember watching Gurley's film in 10th grade. I can remember watching Chubbs, Marinos, back years and years and years. Then you see, two guys that you watched as young men start in the Super Bowl, as Michelle and Gurley did last year. And it's amazing watching these kids grow up. On the other side, when you get some info, some intel about some of them, it's hard to be critical when you see where some of these kids come from, what they go through, and how far they rise. And some of them get knocked down and, this and that. And it's hard to be critical when you know things other people don't know. And it's heartbreaking. It really is. You see the good, you see the bad. You see some kids that just don't have the upbringing that we might have had or went through some of the same perils and trials and tribulations. And you see them get knocked for this and that. These are just kids. These are just somebody's son out there. And for me, it's always been, that's what I'm looking at. If I do talk to a kid, which is very rare because it's just odd in my opinion, I'm wishing them the best wherever they go because I'm investing my time. That's a passion. It's a blessing to watch. But case in point, a kid that's a junior now in high school, one of the top ranked kids I got a chance to speak with the other day because he reached out to me. Wherever he goes, I'm gonna be a fan, unless it's Auburn.
Right.
But you get to see so much from these young men, especially the ones like we mentioned, Blaylock, the ones that don't crave the attention. They're just going through it and handling themselves in a way that I'm not sure I would be able to handle myself that way at that age. I know I would, because I made biggest mistakes of my life at that age. So it's, like I said, it's hard to be critical of a lot of these kids when they're giving their all. They're giving their all for sport, for our state, for our school, and you're proud to have them, proud to be involved with it. And I think Georgia definitely rose to the occasion as far as what they could showcase, as far as the school, the talent, playing with the depth, getting kids in that game, and rising to the occasion. Which, the saying is Athens is undefeated. I believe it, remained that way. And I mean, you were there.
Right.
If you were 16, 17, 18, you'd want to go back there.
Exactly.
So I think really, if you wonder what these kids think, put yourself in their shoes. Where would you want to go? Would you want to play for Kirby? Would you want to send your son to play for Kirby? I would. You can follow the planes. You can follow the visits. Follow the moms. That's my motto. If he gets a hold of the mom, they're going there.
Oh yeah, I agree. Well, I'll throw a couple of names at you, and you can tell me if you know anything, or you can be coy, I guess. Well, I guess one that. Yeah,
I sound like a politician when it comes to all this sometimes.
Yeah, you're good. How about Jordan Birch? Did it was rumor he was supposed to be there? Was he there or was he not? And is that a sign if he's still in the race with Georgia?
He was not, and I wouldn't put much stock in that. I think the defensive line. I think they're set. Feel really good with Zychavius Walker, which is a local kid for me.
Okay, that is one that. Yeah. What do you think about him? Pretty good so far. Good athlete.
I'm all in on him.
Okay. Any idea when he might announce or pop, as the young kids say?
Before the Florida game.
How about that? Is Florida still in the race? Because I have heard him with Florida a lot.
Yeah, I said that forever up until the other week.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that then. Maybe that's a good sign.
And he's a good kid. Man, he's a good kid, and he's got a good family. He's got a couple younger brothers that are studs too. He's got a little brother that I believe is dunking in 6th grade. That's coming up. That'll be in high school next year. So it's amazing. Like I said, watching these kids from a young age, watching them come through, and he's very, very mature, soft spoken until he gets out on the field. This is the first, his freshman and sophomore year, he played a good bit of tight end, and it looked like Antonio Gates out there running around. He's not playing the highest level of competition. But at the same time, he's a high-ranked 4-star that really hadn't camped. If he was up in Gwinnett County camping, playing, 5A, 6A, he's a 5-star all day, in my opinion.
All right. Okay.
He's definitely a 5-star kid.
Good deal. Might be under the radar 4-star, right?
In my opinion, yeah. I'm excited about him. I've wanted to throw him on my projected list for a long time, but he grew up a Florida fan. That's why I would say, if he's not public in a couple of weeks, it'll be Florida week. That's just my opinion.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and then speaking of kids, I know he's probably been going through a lot, and we'll talk about. We already got Kendall Milton, of course. He it was back in June he committed, and they're looking for that most important second running back. Any information on Zach Evans and then a surprise visit of Tank Bigsby this weekend for the Notre Dame game? Anything about that?
My opinion, Tank's wanted to be a Dawg. I believe he's got a committable offer that he'll flip from Auburn. Of course, that's all speculation at this point, but he sprained an ankle in their Friday night game.
Yeah, how bad was that? I know you were texting me about that Friday night, real late. Yeah. Is it real bad, or is it? They almost say it's better to break it sometimes than a sprain, but
Exactly, that's something that might nag for a while, but I don't believe it was a high ankle sprain, which is, I'm no doctor, but seemingly a little bit worse. I think he was in a boot for the game, but I don't know. Something, everything happens for a reason. It could be a blessing in disguise. I don't see them rushing him back anytime soon, but I think he'll be back for their playoff run. I think he's only going to be out for a couple of weeks. Of course, that's speculation, but he's a big kid. I'm unsure on on Evans. I do know that he did talk to the staff before his visit to A&M. I do know there's a lot of chatter about A&M and LSU. There's a lot of chatter about that kid, and he's a great talent. If we could pull the top running back out of California and Texas, that's just fine. But if we keep a Georgia boy home and give a spot to somebody that really wants to be there, then that's what they'll do. I really don't have any reservations, or definitely not going to run backseat running back coach to Dale McGee, because he's done an outstanding job in getting talent, not just at the running back position for Georgia, but in his area that he works as far as recruiting. So they had a couple of running backs there. I'm excited about 2021 kid Evan Pryor. He was at the game. Watching his film, he's 5'10", 180, and fast as lightning. Good hands, and anybody out there that's following recruiting is following film and watching these guys, and it's easy to see the level that they're playing at. And it's exciting that these North Carolina kids have come down. You look at Zeus, you look at Marshall, Gurley. The future looks good for North Carolina kids coming down to Georgia and playing running back. So I think you asked me if they might take 2 next year. I believe they will. I know they're going to want to take 2 this year. They need to. But then again, they might need to take 2 quarterbacks as well.
Yeah, how about the Pryor kids, since you were mentioning them? Who's he maybe remind you of? Who's he look like on film, if you could do a comparison?
It's tough doing comparisons, but running back's one of the easiest as far as film. To me, I have a tough time with offensive linemen, but running backs, quarterbacks, kind of easy to watch. At his size, I would say he's definitely got the speed and burst of Marshall, but he's got really, really good hands.
Maybe like a James Cook, something like that. James Cook's pretty good out of the backfield.
He does, and along those same lines, the way he runs in his stride doesn't too easy for him. The kids have the angles on him. He just runs right by them. Kind of McIntosh in Arkansas State, the guy pulled up holding his hamstring. Well, that's what happens when you get beat like that. Oh, yeah. Somebody just runs by you and you got the angle on him. I'd grab my hamstring too, because that kid put his foot in the ground and just took off.
Right.
Reminded me of the swift run, the SEC championship the other year against Auburn. Just the burst, the vision. You can tell, because it almost looks like they're playing middle school ball when they're out there on the field like that. And the film that's out there now that I watched on Pryor is his sophomore highlights. So when you're watching a sophomore just run over competition, he's from a Charlotte suburb up there. So I know Gurley played a lower classification. Marshall came out higher ranked than him as well up there. But of course, we saw what happened first time. Gurley touched the ball. He took it to the house against Buffalo on a 100-yard kick return. A guy had the angle on him, but him with that size and speed ran right by him. Of course, these guys, I don't know what Pryor's doing in the weight room, but you know what they're going to do with him when he gets up in Athens. And the recruits that commit, they go ahead and get them on a plan while they're in high school. So that is one of the keys and advantages of committing early is Georgia goes ahead and, they expect you to be at a certain weight, doing this, doing that. They have expectations for you to reach while you're still in high school. So it's always fun watching running backs all the way back to, Noel Devine's film when he was younger. I wish they had YouTube back when I was younger, so I could pull guys that I played against or grew up watching in high school, because high school football in Georgia is definitely a passion that grows with you. And it's always fun to watch these kids grow and go wherever they go and follow them, because you see how far they come from, where they come from, especially down here where I'm from in Southwest Georgia, rural area. Now we're recruiting this area, as far as Georgia's concerned, better than they did in the past. And that's surprising, refreshing, and great to see. Got a lot of kids from down here around my way that that are making their way up there. I remember watching Otis Reese. The list goes on and on. Quay Walker's from next door. There's tons of kids. A lot of kids that have went to Auburn, as well down this way. Tyler Clark is from my alma mater. I know his family very well. It's fun watching him play. A lot of people don't know he played all last year hurt. It's something they don't disclose. Why did he have such an off year? This and that. Well, he was hurt all year long. He played hurt. Which he's having a good year this year. He's definitely stepped up as a senior and a leader on that defense side of the ball.
Good deal. Great information. Well, I'll throw a couple of rapid fire players at you. You can just say what you know about it. If you don't, that's fine. This past weekend, how about Noah Sewell, Darnell Washington, and Theo Johnson? What you know about them from the visits, or what you've heard?
Nothing but good things. I had them both in my class, my projected class, going into this weekend, and they're still right there.
Okay.
I think Sewell is rising. I don't believe he'll go to Oregon at this point to play 1 year with his brother, and that would be great to get him. All those guys are from a long way from Athens, Georgia, and to pull one of them would be great. I think right now we pull all of them.
Awesome.
It's hard to count out Human and what he can do, and some of the state talent at inside linebacker that seemingly might get passed up. I mean, you kind of process of elimination and complex problem solving when you look at it from afar. It's hard to say they won't get who they're going after when they sign, Dean, they sign Tyndall, sign off kids from out of state that are 5-star talents. It's hard to say they won't.
All right, yeah, I like what I hear on that. It'd be great to get all three of those, and I'm sure we'll be moving inside the top three on our recruiting.
I think they close very strong. I think we get Ringo. Definitely all of these guys we were naming are 5 stars on the cusp of being 5-star talent. Johnson's just outside that. If we're talking about composite 247, which is kind of what I always went by. It's kind of the standard as far as the industry is concerned. But you look at the talent that was there this weekend. There's a lot of 5 stars that were in town for the next few classes.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll look at the slate of games this week. Look at a couple of games. We can make some just give some educated picks, predictions. I guess most interesting because we just played them. You mentioned it earlier. Virginia, number 18 Virginia at number 10 Notre Dame. This according to ESPN, it's Notre Dame minus 12.5. What's your pick on that game?
I think they cover 7. I don't see 12.5. I wouldn't put my money on that. Virginia's looked pretty good. And like I said, all of Bulldog Nation's probably going to be on Notre Dame bandwagon to watch them and root them on to, definitely help Georgia out by winning out if they could. Makes that win look that much better. And, as far as I'm concerned, that's a good football team that came out there. I wasn't crazy about the second injury. I believe,
I
believe that first that guy got his bell rung a couple times, and I think the guy was, his teammate was really looking out for him. But then again, at the moment, that appeared to what it looked like. Nobody at the games, the fans there, or the people watching, really could go back and watch what happened. And like you said, you go back and watch the game, go back and watch the replay. A lot of people don't go back and watch it if they're sifting through to the highlights. I like watching the offensive side and watching the line come off. I watched it a couple of times just to watch the line, this side, that side, watch the receivers, watch where the ball's not going, who's doing what, who's on the field, what personnel package, kind of dork out on that. A lot of times I won't watch the game on Saturday. I'll wait till Monday or Tuesday. That's just me. I'll be so nervous for the game that I might pop in and out to watch it unless I'm there. If I'm not there, a lot of times I'll get busy doing whatever I can find to do and clean the house, cut grass, whatever I can do to work those nerves out. But it's definitely been fun to watch these past couple of years. But I would take Notre Dame on that. what other games we got going on this week?
Yeah, how about USC against Washington? You got Washington minus 10.5. Our boy Jacob Eason.
I would take that. They're 3-1 on the year. I didn't mention the two kids beat out past couple years. Everyone else, where Eason's already over 1,000 yards, 10 TDs versus 2 interceptions. Fields has a combined 19 touchdowns through the air and on the ground, and those are probably 2 of the top 5 Heisman candidates, around. USC's losing momentum. Lost a 5-star I was talking about earlier, Bryce Young from Santa Ana. He's flipped over to Alabama. I was watching his film for the first time earlier. It's impressive. USC's just losing momentum all the way around. You have to wonder what's going on out there. Pac-12, whatever they call it now. They've got Cal. They're looking at maybe not getting the team in the playoff. So that's a big game. I would definitely take. Is that game in Washington? On that, they're 3-1 on the year. I would definitely take Washington on that, and definitely root for Eason. Besides his footwork, if he steps up and gets those feet in control and doesn't rely on his arm as much, gets the mechanics a little bit better, he's going to be a good pro quarterback.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna make this my dog of the week. I usually do a prediction underdog. I'm actually 1-3, so don't listen to me. And I didn't cover last week because I picked.
Taking Maryland?
I did. Last week I took Tennessee. What was that? I took Tennessee plus 14. I didn't think they'd win, but I thought they'd hang around and cover. Obviously, I was wrong. So anyway, this week I'm gonna go USC plus 10.5. I don't think they'll win, but they'll cover. That third string quarterback looked good against them against Utah last week. Utah was a pretty good team. So I guess if I had to pick one, not the greatest slate of games, I was looking at that. USC plus 10.5, not to win, but just to cover. And then I believe game day, which I think is going to be a blowout, but we can talk about it. We got our other transfer quarterback, Justin Fields, who's been putting up video game numbers. I believe he was accountable for 6 touchdowns in 1 quarter last week, which is crazy. But it's number 5 Ohio State against Nebraska, and it's Ohio State minus 18 right now, according to ESPN.
I would take Ohio State on that. I watched the Colorado game against Nebraska. Watched them come back. They were non-existent at half and came back, won that game in overtime. It was a great game.
Right.
Earlier in the year, Mel Tucker out there at Colorado. I would take Ohio State in that, and I'm gonna throw this in there. I like Maryland over Penn State.
Okay.
I don't know what that spread is, but I like Maryland over Penn State. That would be
that's Friday night. Okay, actually,
right,
that's exactly. Friday night at 8, and that's Penn State minus 6.5. So okay.
I like them to
That'd
cover.
be David's dog of the week. There you go.
I like Maryland to win on that one. That's the one that I looked at that kind of popped out that I'd watch and be the upset dog, so to speak.
Okay, good deal. I like that one. And then finally, looking around the SEC a little bit, we'll do a little hot takes or bold predictions.
All right.
Do you think Jeremy Pruitt will make it to the end of the year? And how about is Will Muschamp on the hot seat? Because I was listening to Paul Feinbaum yesterday, and people in Columbia are not happy.
They're loyal, though.
They're loyal. Yeah, they are.
They are. They've sold out. For years. They come out to support the team. And they have to deal with Clemson fans every year. Which if you deal with Clemson year in, year out, you have to think that they've got pretty thick skin. Pruitt's a ticking time bomb, in my opinion. I love the guy, but that I could spend an hour talking about Jeremy Pruitt. Pros, cons. I love his passion. That was great to see. But at the same time, that seems to be his downfall. Is his I don't think that you could put somebody on the hot seat after they were your 14th pick to be a head coach.
Yeah.
They went through with the whole list of everybody that's ever coached college football trying to find a coach. And I like Pruitt. I think he's a good recruiter, but I've always said that's just a tick.
Do you think they need to pay? They need to have. Do they need to make the buyout then? Because you pay somebody else. They're still playing Butch Jones.
Right. Well, up until the other year, Auburn was still paying Tuberville. They and I think along those same lines, Malzahn's on the hot. I think in SEC every year when you're at a program that's expected to win, that has those schools have that we have. We've got fans that are bashing Kirby, conservative. When look at what he's doing against our rivals.
Yeah. I'd say he's probably the second safest besides Saban in the SEC. Kirby Smart, my opinion.
A good article on Saban is Nick Saban is underpaid. I can't remember what news publication released that, but it's a good read as far as the enrollment at Alabama, the other programs.
For sure.
But I definitely agree with you. Kirby's been given the keys to the state, and he hadn't disappointed. He had certain requirements that he wanted, that he's received, and he's delivered, and kept on delivering.
Exactly. Just hopefully get us a natty one day.
I think that's just in due time.
Yeah. All right. Well, David, we appreciate you joining the show. How about at the very end, tell us a little bit about what's going on at Dawginsiders.com. I actually signed up for it yesterday.
Appreciate that. We appreciate all our members there. It's a close community. One thing that free. That's one thing, is self-supporting, and we're looking to here in the near future, align ourselves with some charities, some nonprofits, and other like-minded sites to partner with and go forward with that we can definitely share our community with, and get behind some charities and events going on that are aligned with the University of Georgia and our state to kind of share some of the and partner with those guys and find things that we're passionate about to support and move forward with. It's definitely a place to where we've had great success without even advertising, just word of mouth, and some great guys on that board. We're glad to have you aboard.
Awesome.
And again, thanks for having me on. And
no problem.
I thoroughly enjoyed today and kind of prepping. And as you know, when you do something like this, when you talk more about it, you're just having a good time and learning more about things that you're very, very passionate about.
Exactly. Yeah, man. Appreciate you, David, being on, and we'll definitely have to do it again on down the road. I appreciate it.
Just let me know, Trey. I appreciate you. God bless you.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. And that's another episode of the Herschel Talkers. And go Dogs. And no game this week. And we're out.